It is time to saddle up for a rumor roundup, Jason Snow.
Yeehaw.
There's a bunch of stuff today in a variety of little containers. We're going to start by talking about some AI, iOS 18 related rumors and news that's been going on over the last couple of weeks. This is all from Mark Gurman in some form.
He's the sheriff.
The sheriff is back, reporting that Apple will be using chips of its own making and design for powering their data centers for AI features in iOS 18. Apparently, the M2 Ultra will be the first chips used in these data centers. Mark Gurman expects that image and text generation, along with lengthy summaries, may need to be performed on these servers, with more simple tasks being done on device. He also references how this is kind of Apple's playbook for this kind of stuff, where they have things on their own data centers at first, and then they maybe spread them out a little bit, so they have them on different cloud services. I think they use like Azure and AWS for some iCloud stuff, and he expects that might be the future. But I was quite surprised to see this, that they will be, one, I guess, having their own data centers, because we're going to get to some of the other stuff a bit on. This whole thing is getting a bit confusing and a bit muddled.
So they actually asked Tim Cook about it on the analyst call, and I think it was Tim, it might have been Luca Maestri, and they said the standard thing that Apple does will be done here, which is they'll do processing of things on device, and they will have some of their own cloud services, and they will use other cloud services. Like it was, I got the sense that it was a pretty straightforward sort of like they use their data centers for some things, and then they use partners for other things, and it's a mixture that will change over time. And they really pitched it as being kind of their standard procedure here, that they do some of this. I do wonder if, they realized there was stuff that they weren't happy with doing on somebody else's server, or whether there was a secrecy issue, whether they felt like they were better off kind of trying this out on their own and then using other servers for more volume down the road. But it's really interesting, right, that they're trying to use their chips as a way to differentiate, I guess, or to power this in a way that they think maybe is better. I don't, we don't know what it is or how it works, but it's a really interesting idea that they might do it. I also wondered if it might be fallback kind of thing, where on some of their devices, the power on the device is not strong enough. And so that they might just offload that to into their cloud.
You know what? That makes so much more sense to me, you saying that. I mean, the reason I am confused is because of the next kind of two pieces of rumor roundup I have for you. So the first part I'll say is Mark Gurman and Julia Love at Bloomberg are reporting that Apple is closing in on a deal with OpenAI to bring ChatGPT features to iOS 18. And then also, Mark Gurman has reported on some Siri improvements. So Siri will feel more conversational. They're going to have a thing called proactive intelligence, which will summarize your notifications for you, offer things like news synopses, and improvements to Siri suggestions across the operating system. They will also have AI photo editing. And in this report, Gurman says that Apple will not have a chatbot of their own. It's something they are technically not capable of with where they are right now with their own internal stuff. And they have executives that aren't thrilled with the idea in general of Apple making one of these things, which is why the OpenAI partnership could exist. So this is what is puzzling to me, of like, well, what do they need in the cloud then? And where is ChatGPT or Google Gemini, if that deal happens too? Where is that coming in?
Right.
Where is it not? And you mentioning the idea there of like, maybe what Apple provides cloud services wise is stuff they can do on device on new devices, but can't do on device on old devices. And that's what they take care of. That's their stuff.
It's essentially what happens on the Apple Watch with Series 9 versus Series 8, right? The idea that, or Ultra 2 versus Ultra 1, where it does it on device if it can, and if it can't, it doesn't, and it uses the cloud, and it just falls back to that. That might be the case. I also wonder, the chatbot thing is so interesting, right? Because it's very clear that a lot of people inside Apple have been and are still skeptical about the chatbot thing, and then other people are like, what are you talking about? Everybody in the industry is excited about this. We can't sleep on it. No. And so you end up in a situation where they're like, well, we'll do it, but we're going to outsource it. But what I wonder is where does the cutoff? Because Siri needs to have a conversational thing and be able to attach to more data sources and be more, right? Like Siri needs some of that. And if like, I'm worried that what Siri's going to have is something that's more rudimentary than we might want to expect. That said, I'm not sure I need Siri to do what ChatGPT does, right? I'm not sure I really want Siri to go down too far down that path. I just want Siri to remember my conversation, understand the context, be more conversational, and be more functional, and give me the information I want, right? Like, I mean, that's asking a lot, but like GPT, you could ChatGPT has this whole other set of things that you can throw at it. So this is really interesting. I don't know how you architect it so that there's just like a chatbot that eventually gets referenced. I mean, I don't know how. Is there a chatbot app? Is there a chatbot
right?
in
like,
Spotlight?
Or like, what's Siri then? Right? Like,
right.
And
what separates Siri? Does Siri say, I couldn't find this, so I asked ChatGPT?
Yeah. It's very. So this is why it's confusing to me, right? It's like there's obviously lots of things they can do, lots of things they may do, but then there are all these like reports which are quite conflicting. That it's becoming complicated to be able to follow what the story might end up being, and so that is intriguing to me. It is increasing my intrigue, but I'm also getting a little bit nervous.
Sure.
Too, because they've kind of, I don't really think Apple has the opportunity to whiff this. They really need to impress people, I think.
Right. I think though, what we may be seeing is Apple rapidly responding to this, and so things are not as locked and as clear as they might be for a usual cycle, and that goes to who Mark Gurman talks to. Where there may be, some people don't know what other people are doing because they're trying a bunch of different stuff. This also feels like maybe this summer's beta cycle is going to be extra beta, where they are also trying to figure out how to drop all this stuff in. Some of it sort of not last minute, but more last minute than Apple generally does this. And I would expect that some of this is going to be, they're going to announce big in June, and some of this stuff is going to be, October, and some of it's going to be December, and some of it's going to be March, but that they need to figure out, and they may be figuring out along the way, right? Like, let's change how this is integrated. To come back to saying more beta than usual, I think a lot of this is going to be like, let's put it in there and see what happens, and then tweak it as we go. But I would expect that Apple's AI story, they're gonna make a coherent, presumably, presentation about it. But I would think over the next few years, it's gonna kind of be all over the place, where they're gonna be experimenting with things and changing as they go, and changing their data sources and changing how their data sources are used. And I'm okay with that. I kind of expect that. What they're not going to do is unveil a finished product. It's going to be a work in progress. But I hope there's a vision for how this all gets split up. And I really, the thing that bothers me the most about there will also be a chatbot window that has ChatGPT in it, or Gemini or whatever, that's the thing. I'm not convinced that is the most Apple-y approach to this. It feels like they're punting, like they're basically like, well, we can't do that. So we're just, you want your chatbot, here's your chatbot. You can have a chatbot if you want. Because what Apple's good at is integrating that stuff into the whole like experience and interface and having features. Yes. And it suggests to me that Apple still philosophically believes that AI is a tool to be used by features and not an end unto itself. And they may be wrong about that, right? They might be wrong about that. And so it's almost like a hedge where they're like, and there's a chatbot if you want it. And they may learn the lesson that people do want that. And I think so if it's a hedge, I mean, maybe that's a good thing, because they will learn. And we've said this about a bunch of stuff that they've done recently. Like, sometimes if you can force Apple to do it, like with the DMA, right? We're going to know if having alternative app stores and sideloading is devastating to Apple's business and the security of its users or not. We're going to learn it now because it's happening. And I feel like this is a little bit like that, where chatbots, are they not a thing that people actually want? Are they not a thing that works within Apple's interface? maybe we'll find out. And that will settle some of those arguments internally, right? Some of those executives that Gurman mentions who are like, this is not a thing. This is dumb. We shouldn't do this. Like, if their customers want it and they're using it, their arguments fail. And that would be interesting to see, too.
Because I know I want to be able to have a conversation with my phone and have it understand what's going on.
Yes.
I don't want to talk to a chatbot, but it's separated from the device, right?
Well, and that's the thing that gives me chills is this saying, and there's a chatbot somewhere, is that setting us up for a Siri that's still not very good, right? Because the chatbot thing, the number one thing the chatbot teaches us is, wow, Siri is bad. This is what I want, right? I want to have a conversation. And so Gurman says Siri will feel more conversational. It's like, okay, but that's what the chatbot is for. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm worried is that this is resetting expectations about what Siri's going to do to be like they slapped on a new coat of paint and it's more conversational, but in the end all it's really doing is a very limited number of on-device model summary things. And the things we think of as what ChatGPT does, Siri's still not going to be able to do. And boy, that would be frustrating.
So I have access to ChatGPT 4.0.
Yeah, me too.
Model. And I playing around with it. I found it interesting. It was like I think it's very impressive. But I thought to myself, I want to see this play out in a different way. So we're on vacation. We're at Disneyland, and one morning I said to Adina, I was like, just talk to this thing. Just talk to it. And so she was like, hi, how are you? Having a little conversation, and she's like, can you give me some recommendations for places to eat, rides to go on? And it was honestly incredible to just sit and watch this conversation unfold. And I was like, this is what Siri needs to be as a bare minimum for me of like, you should be able to ask it questions and it give you answers. Where so much of the time, like we just had this where like a couple of days later, Adina asked Siri a question, like she's out loud asked the question and it said, I found this on the web for you. And that was it. It's like, that is terrible.
I know.
Terrible.
That is so right. Yeah. Well, that's what they need to address. Right. And yes, this is like for all of their, we bet the company on AI now and we pulled all the engineers off the car project and killed and all that. If Siri is still incapable, like it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. Now maybe the GPT is a fallback. Maybe it's going to get fed information from ChatGPT
which would be great.
Or Gemini or whatever. Yeah. That is fine. But in the end, I do not want Siri to be like, well, I've reached the end of my knowledge. Here is a page you can read on your phone, right? Because that's the worst part about it, is it's not, well, I found this thing on the internet that says this. What do you think? And then you answer and you continue the conversation. That's a more chatbot kind of experience. But when Siri's just like, yeah, I can't do that. You're going to need to look at your phone now and look at this webpage that I found. That is the webpage you already looked at because it isn't helpful. And like so I'm with you. I think a lot of this makes sense. And I do fundamentally believe that AI is not always a means to an end and that the winners of leveraging AI technology have to make it friendlier, like put an interface on it. It's like the command line. It's powerful, but like if you could do more with it and use the AI stuff behind the scenes to leverage it in other ways, I think that that's really powerful and an opportunity for Apple. But like, you can't get the personal assistant wrong. I mean, you can't. And Siri, like, man, can you imagine if they do this and then Siri's just still bad, and then there's also a chatbot, but Siri is still kind of bad and broken, like,
or even
I think Apple
from each other too.
We could put this on another phrase it in a different way, which is, I think Apple's entire AI effort, no matter what they do, no matter how many new synopses and AI photo editing features they throw into it, if Siri is bad, the rest of it doesn't matter. Yep. If Siri's still bad, if Siri is still terrible, and there are chatbots out there that are continuing to get all the hype, it will be perceived, and probably will actually be, a failure. Like, they gotta get that right. And the Gurman report is scary because it sort of suggests like maybe not. And so we'll see, I guess. But I'm worried about it too.
Because Siri was the first one of these kinds of things. Like, this was what it was supposed to be.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. And it was supposed to evolve, which it never did.
It never did. Or like
it's better than it used to be, but the world has
not,
passed it by. Yeah.
It's never taken a leap bigger than the initial one, right? Where like it came around, it's like, wow, this is amazing, because nothing had done that before, and we forgave a lot of it, and it was great at doing what it could do. But it's never since taken a jump. It's like, oh, it's faster now. It can understand you better now. But the answers aren't any more rich, really.
Yeah. So I don't know how they square that. And again, Mark Gurman's challenge is that he is just hearing from individual people throughout Apple, and they all have a different experience of this. So it may be that these things are connected in ways that we don't understand. But yeah, I got the same vibes, which is, in the end, it starts with Siri. The whole purpose of Siri's place in the interface is to do what people use AI chatbots to do. Mm-hmm. That is why it's there.
Yep.
And if it can't do that, or if the Siri team turns its nose up at the chatbots, or there's an executive somewhere who's just like, no, we can't let the crown jewels of Siri be tainted by GPT or something. It's like, no, man. Like, Siri's busted. It needs this technology, and like that's my fear. It's almost more like an organizational fear within Apple. Is like, okay, Apple's agreed that they're going to work with OpenAI and maybe Google on chatbot stuff. Okay, great, but like, what's that implementation like? And does it feel like it's being kind of held at arm's length and it's not actually improving? Like, do the people who won the argument to put chatbots in iOS have the clout to say, no, really put it in? Or are they going to like sneak it in, but people over, and I don't know that the Siri team feels this way, but just like theoretically, the people behind Siri are like, okay, you can put the chatbot in, but it's not touching our stuff, and our stuff is going to be like this, and it's not good enough. Like, that's a disaster. So that's a level where if stuff like that happens, it has to be high level executive, right? This is what Tim Cook gets paid for, right? The stuff like this. This is what Craig Federighi gets paid for. And Eddie Q, like all the senior management team. This is why they get paid the big bucks. Is at some point you do have to say, these people win the argument. And I know that you don't like it for reasons, but they have to win the argument. And my fear is that we're going to see some hedging and not winning the argument here. And I'm not saying throw Siri out. I mean, but I think it's busted and needs to be a new Siri. And if you've got a new Siri that's not as good as ChatGPT, but can leverage something like ChatGPT, great. So, boy, and it's not going to be there in the first developer beta, right? It's not going to be there. Mm-hmm. Something will be there, but it won't be there. So a lot of this is going to hinge on, like, what does Apple say? I'm sorry to keep coming back to my classic Jason position of pay attention to the storytelling, but oh my God, we are going to have to pay close attention to the storytelling here, because I suspect the storytelling will tell us more about what Apple's thinking about AI than maybe the initial betas will.